So I still haven't set up. I'm starting to pick my forces that I want hidden out, looking at the victory conditions, and I have to say, I've been dreading this. I'm slipping into a depression, of course. And so my avoidant behavior had shunted this aside, but now greater avoidances have bubbled up higher. So like, looking at my severance package and figuring out, making sure that I want to sign it. Yeah, dealing with my dad wanting me to go visit. These things have risen up so that I can't even look onto my Gmail account, anymore. Like, okay. Yesterday, I passed the day mainly playing video games. Today, well, it's pretty enough and I'm well enough I could go for a walk. However, somehow this is the easier of the things. Now, I did find something more avoidant, which was watching a documentary, well, I don't know, a YouTube documentary comparing the movie Dune to the book Dune. And I found something really cool. My old, one of my old theater teachers was playing a role in it. Just seeing his face, it's so distinctive that, like, I absolutely was certain and had to look it up. So anyway, to the game. As I start to read through this, I'm not absolutely certain that the victory conditions in general apply to this. So what it says here is police victory. The game is over at the end of the player turn in which the last mob is eliminated. Police get 3 victory points for each mob unit, plus 3 victory points for each mob unit eliminated. Now, is that in addition to the standard victory points? I don't know. I would have to, a way to look is to see, okay, here they say normal, this is a different one. Normal victory conditions do not apply. Let's just look for, yeah, I think this is in addition to normal victory conditions, which bothers me a little bit because of what this is, and we'll get to that in a moment. Mob victory, plus 5 victory points for each police unit eliminated, plus 1 for each complete game turn the game lasts, and plus 2 for each fire burning at the end of the game. Now, normally I would say, hey, that makes perfect sense, but the scenario is a representation of the last stand of the rebels of the Paris Commune in the east end of Paris. The Molotov cocktails are petroleuses, women who were allegedly setting fires. Now, and it goes on talking about, hey, you could leave the field gun out for balance if you get rid of the Molotovs because they kind of counter each other, but the artillery was definitely being used. I'm not sure how much popular opinion would factor into victory conditions at this point. It's kind of like, what was the popular opinion during the siege of Jerusalem? Did Rome really care? This government, and honestly, the people who were pro-uprising were pro-uprising. The people who were against probably were perfectly fine with killing them all. And normally, you would be facing, the plus 3 and plus 5 is the standard victory conditions for these things. I guess they're doubled to make WIAs and KIAs less important. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. And we have no mobs, so that's not an issue. So yeah, I guess I'll use standard victory with that. I'm trying to figure out what I'd want to do. There's no terrain objectives or anything. What I'd want to do in order to utilize hidden units. That's the problem that I'm running into right now, which made me look at the victory conditions. Otherwise, I probably would have just assumed, we'll see what happens, more or less. Remember, this doesn't give line of sight. So the real question becomes defending buildings and the impact of the artillery. So we have to look at the artillery, I guess, because they have here, see the notes for, and I think this is 2, -2 for the use of the field gun, but on the 6th, the field gun will start okay, so I've got to find, the numbering might be wrong. Oh no, 2, 2 is going to be one of these. All right, so let's see, 2-2, that's this. Okay, so we're supposed to use the field gun rules from here, I guess. I don't know. This is not the easiest way to cope with things. The field gun may not move and fire in the same turn. They're the size of a group, have no shock combat value, and an unlimited range. You'd think this would be in the special unit rules instead. The field gun may not enter buildings. It may be. The field gun fires in an area containing a building and attacks one unit in the area with a strength of 15. It may bring the building down on a 6, which destroys everything, and a fire is placed there. Okay. What was that? The extended range optional rule is not used. Okay. All right. That leads me to believe that I can't defend any given house terribly heavily. Now, there's an advantage to hiding units, and I've put the shotgun punks in hiding. If I look at the combat table, maybe that's not that wise. Maybe I'd be better off hiding a bunch of the pistol punks, because they have less firepower and may be able to get a better impact. They're only going to get a retreat, though. The X is important because, well, not really. It's the morale check that's going to beat things up. Okay. All right, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I have to kind of figure out where I want to be. Now, some of the buildings are well labeled as buildings. Some of them, it's just the complex of buildings. Is that all considered one building if it has a letter on it? I don't know. Like, the letters are not well described as far as I remember. Like, the existence of them, you know, like hex numbers, could be largely ignored if there's no statement. They're not noted here under movement. The map, they're not noted on the map. I don't know what I'm supposed to use those letters for. Now, maybe in the hidden units rule, and again, I went through these not long ago, but I'm not always having the same kind of questions. Maybe in the hidden units rule, they talk about these. No, not really. They're put in a building. Yeah. Now, this is the only means of indicating where something is on the map, other than, like, you know, adding your own means. Whatever that means. So I'm going to kind of rule that these are building complexes, and you can be anywhere within them for hidden units. Because otherwise these letters don't make sense why they would even exist. All right. So I'll start positioning those. Now, one of the problems is I really want to be able to hit the police hard, but I don't want to be too concentrated, because if I'm concentrated, the artillery hits has more effect. So I don't know. Plus, my visible units are going to be, and you know, the artillery's chance of bringing a building down is fairly low on any given shot, so maybe concentration is worth it. But yeah, the non-hidden units are going to reveal something that the police may take advantage of. And in terms of like, you know, which side they enter from, whatever. So I've chosen my setup. These are the visible units. In Pistol Punks where there's kind of a tight line of fire if the police want to enter from there. Elsewhere, I've got things kind of lined up everywhere. I put the snipers in G and C because I get some long lines of sight with them. They have unlimited line of sight in this scenario. I've got supposedly 4 Pistol Punks hidden. I only hid 3. Let's get rid of that last one. There should only be 3 there. I don't know why I wrote down 4. The stack looks big is probably what I did. F, C, and W. W. In those clusters, and the reason for those is again to give more supporting fire. Now the question is what the police want to do and how they get taken into this. So if they come in from this side, they might be expecting a lot of hidden units up there. However, I might be able, so the victory conditions is getting rid of all the units on the board. How is that worded? Because what does that have to do with hidden units? The game is over at the end of the player turn in which the last mob unit is eliminated. So I think hidden units have to be discovered. So I may have to hunt units down that didn't expose themselves. Which, given that it's +2, it's +1 victory point for each game turn, might be a worthwhile option to leave a unit hidden and not expose it, especially if it doesn't do much for the police. If it moves on the board, it shows up. So, and now I have to do some thinking as to where the police actually want to enter. They have good firepower, therefore decent range. Why are shotguns got better range than police units? Yeah, I don't know. Just because they have higher firepower. But yeah, it bothers me a great deal to think that shotguns are going to have better range than, say, I don't know what. I mean, I don't know what the police are armed with here. If they're bringing a fucking howitzer with them, you would think that they've got rifles, or at least smoothbores. But given the date, it's probably rifles. If they're just armed with pistols, well, yeah, I guess shotguns would have better range. But I find that highly unlikely. I would really suspect that they've got at least a fair number of rifles deployed here. And yeah, it's a hard call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delay making that decision and go watch some more of my video and come back when I feel compelled to do something that doesn't completely just waste time. Contemplating the entry space, you know, I gotta tell you, there's an element of surprise to all of this in the sense that, like, look, these police are marching up and into the area they're heading. There's a certain closeness anywhere except maybe here where I might get an ambush unleashed on me, which isn't that big a deal. It's just the opposing unit shows itself when fighting. I think maybe my best move is to move in to the apparently unoccupied buildings and search them, because I don't want to be ambushed. If I search them, I force them to appear. I looked at the hidden units here. If an enemy unit enters any area in the building, again, the definition of building is a little weird here. It's immediately placed in an area that's not occupied by an enemy unit. If a unit reveals its presence by firing, its combat strength is doubled. That's the big bonus. So my thinking is these might be occupied, and therefore I want to remove that ambush capability. But what I was saying is the whole thing is kind of an ambush because I have to get so close from almost any direction I come that I'm within firing range, right away. And one of the big advantages to the police is that overall I have fairly good fire capability. Yes, the shotguns are better. So let's take a look at what we have here. And we look at this as well. We need everything. Okay. Movement is lower right. Okay. Moving through, see if we've got a terrain effects chart. Moving into a building costs 2. I'm not seeing the windows thing there. Crappies. So, I read all this, read it with you as well, but I can't remember stuff. I expected to be able to see that windows have a cost or not, and now I don't. Okay, so I guess any movement in buildings is just 2. Hold on. Costs 2 movement points to change levels. Okay. Oh geez. Actually, I think I want everything on second level here. Gives me height advantage and potentially other things that I want. A little harder to reach. Okay. These guys only have a movement of 3. Okay. Let's move into building A for 2 movement points. There's nothing in A, so nothing gets revealed. Okay. 2 movement points into B. Again, nothing there. 2 movement points into C. Let's go there. C has some pistol punks. They've been revealed. I should cross them out. They've been used. Yeah, I need both hands. One thing I wanted to mention, choice of dice often shows something interesting for me for a game. In this game, I chose, for whatever reason, I don't want my rounded dice. Those happen to go with kind of pretty types of games. Certainly, the tiny SPI dice might have worked for this because this has sort of the feel, although I don't tend to use them ever on video, this has that feeling of a game that maybe, and I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, that should have been packaged as kind of a Steve Jackson type game in like a little plastic box. Sure, the maps would have been more annoying if they're fold outs or whatever, but something about this just feels like it belongs in that kind of game setup. The kind of thing that you could take to a coffee shop, just drop in your pocket and bring to play. And then, that special nature of that kind of packaging would create a special opportunity to play the game that I wouldn't have otherwise. But as, something that honestly is going to be treated more like a magazine game than anything else in a lot of ways. Although the rule book is kind of the wrong size and everything. But those require a little bit more care in terms of transportation and whatnot. Now, I don't know if they're more or less than a boxed game. Like a boxed game is a single contained object. So kind of magazine games almost don't go anywhere, or they only go somewhere if I'm carrying like a briefcase or a backpack full of games. I might throw one in. But yeah. But I chose these, which are sort of my least favorite of all dice, because they fit the aesthetic of the game, which is downright kind of ugly, to tell you the truth. All right. So anyway, I've entered here. Now I have some information. I could put him up on second level as well. Now let's take a look. Shock combat for these guys is shitty, which means stacking is, I believe, 3 units. I'm going to send 3 police, 2, 4 up on top. Whee. It's going to be harder to fire on other things. I'll bring this in here. That seems like a good place. We've already determined there's nothing in any of those buildings. That's kind of cool. That means I can focus my drive in this direction. Do I particularly want to get close to the enemy? I don't know. Now remember, police can move diagonally. Ooh. And we could move quite far, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could get inside, but not be at the same level. That's, I don't know if that's terribly appealing, but I think it's better. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're both in there at different levels. That allows me to use fire combat upward. Now, that is D. D had nothing in it. Okay. And let's move this set. I don't want to get too close here. So 1, 2, 2, 3. We'll position ourselves there. All right. Fire combat's already happened, which is a big deal before we came on the board. Movement. Now shock combat. We've got one situation where we've got shock combat. Okay. I got to briefly look over the rules for that again. Nothing's really sticking. It's one of the factors in skirmisher type games is that they tend to have rules that don't just stick in my head easily because they're usually not absolutely similar to anything else, you know? And again, it's part of the cost, and part of that reluctance to play these kind of things is there's a high cost and sort of a low visualization aspect of what's happening. I could see some people really being into it, like the idea of, you know, forces, small squads rushing into buildings to fire or fight and whatnot. Same thing with the Azanti High Lightning, you know, where you're ducking around corners and everything. For me, and even Gunslinger has this, but Gunslinger has an additional problem, which is this this sort of pre-programming that makes me feel like I'm playing Robo Rally or something like that, which I've never played, but I don't like card programming and or any kind of programming for actions. But here you have, you know, I can totally see that imagery of this close-in action being very appealing to people. To me, it's just not. If I'm going to play something like this, I would prefer to play it as a one-person shooter computer game type thing, you know? Maybe with my squad and whatever supporting me, but, you know, I just, there's not much, I don't get the imagery the way they do on either, and the two things that I visualize the best are the tactical gunpowder era, which I just got out of, where you get to see the lines forming up and you can kind of imagine the fire going back and forth in these formations, or ancients or whatever as well, although that gets a little bit more complicated because there's more melee. And then the strategic level, where I'm positioning, you know, the grand strategy room, and I kind of picture that. Here, what I'm picturing is more like an action movie or something, and it doesn't gel for me in the same way. Anyway, Just trying to explain some of my biases and why I got problems. But I have to look at how shock combat works. So after playing a little bit of jiggle the battery so that it charges properly. So the way shock combat works is all units total their shock combat strength. Both sides do it, and they affect all enemy units at once. Okay. So shock combat is 15, and it doesn't cost me anything. You know, there was no opportunity fire, nothing like that. This is not a complicated game in any way. 15 versus 1. Sounds pretty impressive. Okay, let's look at the 1 first. That's fire combat, shock combat. Shock combat of 1. Units are in building. That'll give them -2 to the die roll. Okay, and that's it. -2 to the die roll means I need a 6 to even cause a morale check on the police coming in. I do not. Now at the 15, at -2 to the die roll, wow, that was higher than I needed. That's okay. I get a crappy 1. That causes a 1 retreat. Okay. Now, shock combat does not force a morale check, so the police have no morale check. But we look at the retreats. Units retreat through empty areas. Okay, now leaving something on the first level would have been useful. Instead, what happens, and no, they don't fall out the window, is that those pistol punks run down to the second level, or run down to the first level. Apparently there's another exit, going down or whatever. Now, they have to make a morale check, and take a quick look here. Shock combat morale check. Unit is suppressed, no. Unit has no retreat route, no. I seem to remember that there was a penalty for each retreat you take, though, that I'm not seeing. Let's check these. Oh, boy. All right, I'm not seeing this on here. Oh, unit has retreated is a +1. That's what it is. Okay, so our morale is on here, I assume. Yeah, our morale is only 3, and we're at +1. We get a 2, we're perfectly fine. We might have been suppressed. I think that is our first phase. There were no previously suppressed, there are no suppressed police units, so nothing happens. And we go to, the mob phase, I guess, which I'm assuming I'm doing this right, that the mob goes second. I'm not going to look it up because it's not too interesting. Otherwise, there's no suppressions. We're going to be on the fire combat phase for the mob. And I'm going to, again, take a break. I want to get away each time. I want to run away. And it's one of the problems I have with this kind of game. It just doesn't grow my excitement. Maybe after I get used to it a little bit, I'm thinking like Awful Green Things. I get an excitement out of that, even though that's kind of tactical like this, just because the puzzle is kind of cute and everything. I don't know. So it's possible through multiple playings, this might appeal more. It's just not really my kind of thing. Okay, so now we have fire combat for the mob. And there's a might as well, because there's no real penalty to fire combat. And then you can do... The only penalty is you can't move into an enemy space and shock combat them. So it's something I want to do. Now let's take a look at where I am. G and C. Oh shit, there was another guy in C. Fuck. Yeah, I didn't see that. All right, we're gonna have him, I don't know. See, that would have fucked everything up. Let me just move that from C to W. W would have been a possibility. Then I might have put him in. And now let's look. G isn't going to have any lines of sight. W will. And so I'm going to put this here, and I'll mark it like this, so that I know it'll have its advantage. I'm going to, I think, be shooting at this thing. So that's W. Do I want the pistol punks to fire? They only have a range of 2, and we're not allowed to use extended range here, probably because we're still using fairly old types of weaponry. F is another one where someone was. That's the squad again, probably not worth doing. Okay. So sniper. Sniper will be firing at range. Well, snipers have infinite range. The problem with this is no line of sight. Sniper versus this. I'll be firing at a fire combat of 1, but the bonus of the hidden is like a shift or something. Oh, and we'll be on 2nd floor there. There's no reason not to. That gives us height advantage. Okay, fire combat will be doubled, so that puts me to 2. That actually doesn't help. So hiding snipers was not helpful. Oops. Okay. And then modifiers to the die roll. This is shock combat shit. Modifiers to die roll. Height advantage +1. Sniper firing another +2. That gets me up to 3. We're not firing into a building. We're good. Okay. So that gives me a 3 at the big thing. And I roll a 4 that does nothing. So that's fired. Range doesn't allow any fire from these. These guys are on the 2nd level, shooting down. So that's going to be a 6 base. Puts me over to this table. Height advantage, I guess, +1. But I'm firing into a building. I think that's still a penalty, building to building. It would make sense. It's still going to be painful to fire within a building. We could look it up and see, and I guess I will, whether it spells anything out about that. Okay, so barricades windows. This is a little different. If any LOS is traced through such an object. See, building isn't here, but it is on here. And I'm left with this, you know, if you're firing inside a building, it's such a cluttered situation, I want to give that penalty. So let's do it anyway, which is 2. Now, of course, that could be increased by a barricade or whatever, I guess. So I am at -1 on the 6 table, and I'll just shoot at one of those. I get a 5. That's going to be 2 wounds on the police, which I mark. Oh, wait, no, 2. Hold on. No, that's 2 wounds. Okay. And that's going to mean that there's a morale check. There's always a morale check at anybody who's shot at. I don't think it's anybody in the space who's shot at. Again, this is the kind of stuff you could make arguments either way, so it all has to be looked up. Units will often have to check their morale. And you got to find everything. All right, I'm not seeing it there. So maybe it's here. They will often have to a unit after being attacked. See, I know there's a place that says whenever you're shot at, you take a morale check. I haven't found that yet. Only for the unit. Okay. And that's what I would have assumed. So we took 2 wounds. Now we take a morale check. The morale check +2 for the wounds. And that's it. And it's just a police unit. It has a morale of 4. I roll a total of 5. That's going to be a suppressed unit. So now I have a unit suppressed here, and they will get to recover right away because, again, we're assuming the police have better morale, which is why it's designed the way it is. Again, I will try to play games by the rules as written if I can at all justify it. It's not a symmetrical situation, so fine. I'll accept that that's how it goes. Okay, so we fired him. And this is another thing, you know, I mean, I'm so much in detail on each thing. It's very hard to get into that, you know, the individual of what's going on here. Somebody ducking down, firing their shotguns down the stairwell at the cops who are coming. It's just hard for me to get into the picturing of that. Because it's at the same level as the detail. The imagery is at the same level as the detail. This is something I brought up with the Leipzig thing. The detail of that game is moving down the line, doing all the firing, say, the equivalent to this. But then the imagery is when you step back and see what happened. And the exciting part of that imagery is those lines forming and firing at each other in that picture. The imagery of this is chaos of people bumbling around in a house. Where you really want to zoom down and get the excitement of it is at the exact level where the mechanisms of the game are. So when you do step back, you don't really, or at least if you're me, you don't really get that sort of theatric imagery that you want from the processing. I'm not sure how better to explain it. Okay, so now we were forced down the stairs. I'd rather shoot at these low morale units because I get as much bonus for killing them as anything. Now I believe I'd be allowed to shoot at this as well, which I'd actually have a better shot at. But I don't know what wounds do to something like that, right? I think there's rules on it. Okay, I don't know if there's rules for the cannon or the machine gun outside of the scenarios where they're specified. I flip through. There's rules for the water cannon, which may be the same kind of thing. But there are rules for it over here in the street battle for uprising, not the one that I'm in. Fuck. The HMG and field gunner replaced by a reserve unit. So I'm guessing there's crew there that can be shot and hurt. Okay. So yeah, let's shoot at them. We're on the 4 table with no bonuses, no penalties, I think. Doesn't hurt us for shooting out the window. And you'd think this is the more immediate concern, but we get a 6. That's another wound. That shows up as another wounded in action for police. Remember, these are victory points going to the police player. And again, I'm not sure if they should apply for this scenario, but it seems like they should. And the morale is 4. I took a wound, so that's +1. I roll a 6. This unit is now suppressed. But not killed. Now I'm going to rotate the guys who fired because they're not allowed to attack. And that includes him as well. They're not allowed to do a melee combat. So these 3 fired. No one else is in range to fire. So now we go to the movement phase, and I got to make me some choices. It seems to me not bad to do this. And I think it's just 1 to jump out a window. 2, 3, nothing stops me anywhere. These guys fired, so they can't do anything. They can't move downstairs. They're stuck upstairs. These guys are all on the 2nd level. I'll stay 2nd level here. I'll move these 2nd level up there. 1, 2, 3. Going to start focusing my forces forward. Now there's a danger to this, which is that cannon, if I don't knock that out, it can bring a whole building down. 1, 2, 3, 4 to there. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if I'm being reasonable or not. 1, 2, 3, 4 will join. We have the agitator that helps our morale, so that's somewhat useful. No shock combat. None of the mob units were suppressed. And now we move the turn marker forward, and this is going to be the beginning of a new turn where we do the gas and fire combat phase, which is officially where this would get turned to indicate at the end of the police turn they're able to remove that suppression. Of course, they're in some danger. I wheeled that cannon out there and didn't give it any physical support in terms of like troops, police right with it. So maybe I need to move some in place. Time for another break. I realize I kind of missed an opportunity during the last fire combat phase. I could have dropped some Molotovs. Probably would have been a really good time to do it. Unfortunately, learning a new system, forget to do some things that I'd want to do. I have a whole bunch of them. They're a pretty good option. Hopefully we'll see how they work in a little bit. All right, but right now, nothing really happens here. There's no gas, there's no fires burning or anything. So we go to fire combat for the police. Now, the police have pretty good fire values. Let me see what's going on. These guys, yeah, nobody can stay on the same level because the shock combat will keep being resolved until somebody leaves. Did I do right there? Not really sure. Yes, I got a retreat result, therefore, and fuck, I forgot about retreats. So a retreat result in shock combat is only applicable if, I'm trying to see if I fucked up. I don't think I did. I think it's only applicable if you have less units. But it's kind of hard. Okay. The other player does the same with all enemy units. If the results, there are still opposing units, well, only this side with the smaller total shock combat strength must conduct a retreat. We had the smaller strength that had to retreat. Okay. So we were fine in the shock combat that we underwent. So what I probably want to do is concentrate fire. The thing is, I could move down and take advantage of my take advantage of my improved shock combat capability to do more damage than I would otherwise. And this is where it gets kind of tough. So let me combine these guys for fire. So that's 369 within range, right? It's half the range. I think it's rounded up. And we do not have a height advantage. In fact, what we do have, though, is we're firing into a building. So we're at 9 at -2. I get a total of 3, which has no effect. And these guys have fired, so again, I'm rotating them because I want to remember I can't move them into combat. These guys are up on the second level. I would like to suppress this so that it won't drop a Molotov on me. So I am going to fire these as well. So that's 15 fire combat value. Again, I guess at a range of 2. And there, I've got height advantage, so I'm at +1. None of these are SWAT teams. I roll a 7. That gets me 2 kills and 2 wounds against this. Again, this is, those points are to the advantage, sort of the mob. However, we have to make a morale check, and that morale check's painful. It's at +4, +5, +6. Which guarantees that this will roll a 7 or higher and die. I'm going to keep it over here as a dead pile. Units that withdraw off the map, I'll just put in the box because they don't count anymore. And that is, oh geez, I should have only been on the 10 level. Oh no, it was these guys who fired. Okay, so we're good there. Now we go to the movement. I guess these two will climb the stairs. That's 2 movement points. These guys, 1. I don't really necessarily, like, I don't want to get close to things that can shoot me, but I kind of have to. 2, 3, I guess, into there. So they're done. These guys can move. 1, 2 down the stairs. 3, 4. I'll move them there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And now we have shock combat, where these two are shocking that. And shock, they have a strength of 1, we have a strength of 10. Now, shock modifiers. Shock combat has a modifier against units in the building, but this is on both sides. So we're at -2. They're rolling on the 1 table at -2. They get a 4. That's going to be a morale check on the police, whereas the police are on the 10 table at a -2. And they get a 2. They're going to cause a retreat. The morale check has to be done first, though, I guess. Check the morale. I don't think there's any problem on morale. So I guess each unit rolls a 4. Since they're the same, I roll them. Both units are suppressed. I grab another suppressed marker on the 2nd floor. And these guys had a retreat result. Are they the smaller force? That's the question. So we look back at shock combat. Only the side with the smaller total shock combat strengths must conduct a retreat. Okay, so first we make the morale check, I guess, on them. Because it wouldn't be fair otherwise, right? And they pass their morale check easily. So this force actually has to retreat. And it'll retreat downstairs. And now everybody under there is suppressed. But one of them is different from the others. One of them was previously suppressed and can recover. All right. And now we come to the suppression recovery, and those 2 that were suppressed during the mutual gas phase unsuppress. And I check the counters because they're not all back printed exactly the same. One side is always the same, but whatever. I don't know quite how to put that. And that puts us now to the to these guys. And again, you know, I should just be pushing through, but something in me just doesn't want to. So for fire combat, we're going to do him first. He's still on the 2nd floor, and he's going to drop a Molotov down. Now, theoretically, this is supposed to represent women setting fire to stuff instead of actual Molotovs. Not sure why, you know, the throw range would be the impact then, but we'll play it as it reads. Let's see if we can find it there. It's got a fire combat strength of 4 against each unit in the area. And then after morale checks, you make a roll. Now, some of these units are already suppressed, and that's going to cause an issue. So strength of 4 against all. Now, what does that mean against each unit? So I'm guessing we make a roll for each unit in there. We take a look here. The unit's already suppressed. -2 for building, which is odd. All right. I would think dropping a Molotov into a building is actually going to be more effective than throwing one out in the open. But, okay. So that gets us to -2 for the top unit. At a strength of 4. Oh, it's fire combat. It's fire combat shit. Height advantage is +1. Target suppressed is actually -1 because they're cowering. So we've got this wrong. Into the building. Okay, so suppression actually doesn't hurt. So actually we're at -2. So that first guy is a 1. And no, he's not suppressed. So he's a 2. 2 isn't going to do anything. The next ones are going to be at -2. No. And no. Okay, so no effect there. Fire from these guys. Do they want to? Let's also check this. G is still far from the world. F and W. F is down here. I could open somebody up here. That's a pistol pump. He won't have range, so I'm definitely not going to open up with him. W. I already had somebody in W. All right. We'll blow another guy out of there. And he'll be getting some kind of bonus. I don't remember what it is. To his fire. He's got the bonus of the coming out of hiding, which is an optional rule. So we flip through here. I feel like Lurch. Watch too much. Oh, mob disintegration. Are we dealing with this? This is not a riot. Okay. Its fire strength is doubled for that attack only. Okay. So, oh, these, no, we don't want to reveal. God damn it. All right, so I put W back in here because I don't want to reveal because I'm not in range, although I'm in range here. Screw it. Oh, not him. He's the sniper. This. And we cross this out. I don't like keeping track of stuff on paper. Okay, so these guys are going to fire here. And that means, all right, I have 8, 12. All right, no easy way to manage this. And I'll combine that all against 1. Height advantage is +1. 6, that's 3 wounds on the police. Again, I don't know what. Against one set of these, 3 wounds means I'm at +3 to the die roll. I roll a 3, that's just going to be a suppression because it's not enough to have killed. And now we have this sniper here who has unlimited range. I want to shoot the cannon. I am not blocked by line of sight because I'm at a higher, if either unit is higher, they're able to pick off other things. This is actually, so a lot of line of sight type games try to position, hey, are they too close? You know, I find this more believable that you'd be able to pick a shot off, especially with these smaller forces, non-formed units and whatnot. Okay, so this is a fire of 1. Is there something funky going on? Okay. Fire of 1, and I have +1 for height, +3 because of sniper. That's it. So I get a 4 that doesn't hit. And now all of these have fired. This has fired. These are not in range. Okay. Shotguns, not quite in range. One, 2, 3, 4. They moved. I don't like moving him. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll put him up on the second floor. These guys are going to keep their height advantage here. These guys are going to keep theirs. I think that's who I had. These guys could come down. But I think that's just for the negative if I do that. So that is the end of the mob here. And do I have any idea of who's winning? You know, I mean, pieces that are knocked out are good for you, but these wounds that cause pieces to be knocked out are bad for you. Right? You want to disperse units without actually causing any damage, which is kind of a weird mechanism across the board on it. I understand the purpose behind it. Again, in this scenario, I'm not sure if it should apply or not, but the way it's worded compared to other scenarios, it appears to be how you do it. So that puts us to another turn. And the dice are up here, mutual gas phase. That means, I'll keep going. The suppression gets rotated. Fuck. All right. And now we get fire combat. Well, first we're going to fire the big gun. We fire it at a single unit from what I understand. I got to find the special rules for that, which are actually in not this scenario, but the next scenario, which I again find. Oh, wait. No, that's an uprising. War on the streets. Okay. Yeah. That's called uprising. Okay, so we look again, we try to find this. Field gun fires in an area containing a building in which it attacks one unit in the area with a strength of 15. What do I want to hit? Well, I'm not that impressed with the sniper, although he has nice firepower. I'm going to blow up... yeah, let's go for the sniper. All right. Because if we get a kill or wound on the sniper, we eliminate it because it's a single piece. So we'll fire combat at 15. However, it's firing across a barrier, so it's still at -2. I do not hit. All right, we keep looking here. It attacks one unit. There is a chance the attack can bring the building down. I roll a d6. On a 6, all units in the area are eliminated. Nope, no luck. All right, that fired. Let's see what else. I got 15 firepower. I think I'm allowed to keep firing at the same unit again and again, which feels funny. Again, it's the kind of thing that, like, normally you wouldn't be allowed to do, is either combine fire or not combine fire as you wish. Although I think it's got to be units that are adjacent that are connected that combine fire. The unit can be attacked any number of times. Yeah. And you're allowed to combine only if you're adjacent to each other or in the same area. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Let's keep shooting at the sniper because, well, I don't know. What are the victory conditions, like the victory points? Flip through everything to find shit because that's what it's all about. Mod victory, 5 for each police, 1 for each... police get 3 for each unit eliminated. Yeah, I want to go for that kill. All right, 15 at -2. That's a 1 that has no effect whatsoever. I think they have to make a morale check. They had to make one before, too. Shit. Morale is what number? It's the 3. So I was suppressed. And now I'm suppressed and worse. Okay. I guess I'm just suppressed up there. And that's this unit. And he's suppressed, but these guys are not. He can't recover on his next turn, and now it's like cluttered in the stacking. And these guys fired, so they're not doing anything. I've got 5 firepower here. I could shoot up at these guys. But that would prevent me from meleeing them. And I would rather melee. I think I'm better at that. So I'm good with them. What about these guys? 3, they could shoot up here. One of them suppressed, but these are adjacent, but too far away. So is a 3-shot against one of these pistol punks worth it? No, absolutely not. But I don't get to melee anyway. Damn it. Okay. My fingers are too fat to get in because I've got too many stacks in one space, basically. Okay. Yeah, the spaces could be bigger. It would be more helpful to have not all the units fit in one square. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I got 3 fire points. 3 fire points is shit. I can't do crap with that, basically. I might suppress them if they fail a morale check. But what else am I going to do? Oh, these guys can too. Okay, 3, because it's 1, 2 away. 9. Let's bring it up to 12 firepower, a -2. Of course, that's the same as 9, so let's just fire these guys. And that doesn't hit. I make the morale check. Again, I have to check which one's morale. These guys are suppressed. Not really. Oh, look, this fire doesn't have a suppression on it. It has a TV camera. Not what was expected. Okay, and now I've bumped people. This guy is not bumped. He should be able to move and attack, because that's what I'm planning on doing. Too far away. These 3 have not fired. I have no one to fire at, though. I mean, yeah, let's shoot at these with the hope of suppressing them. I can't possibly do any damage, but the shots through the window might suppress somebody. Nope. Okay. Now I can move. These guys come up the stairs to attack the guys who are suppressed up here. Now this suppressed should be tilted as per before. These can move 1, 2, 3, 4. They're down on the first level, just asking for somebody to drop a Molotov on them. 1. Suppressed can move, but these guys are going to recover. I'm okay with where they are, I guess. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, take cover in the building. 1, 2, 3. Let's move these guys in too. Suppressed and recovering. And we'll get some cover there, I guess, of sorts. Now we do the shock attack. There's only 1 shock attack being done. It's this 5 versus a 0. A 0, of course, can't hurt. No, it can. How about that? Okay, so 5 modifiers, +1 for suppression, -2 for building. Puts it at -1. That's a 2, no hit. Minus some amount for building, -2 for building. On the 0 table, No effect whatsoever. Battle's not over. It keeps going. This is the way shock combat works. It's kind of clunky to have multiple rounds of combat. I've never been a fan of that kind of systems that allow for it, but whatever. Okay, that was on the 5 table. That would not have hit. There's a minus. This other one. Okay, we forced a morale check on these. They're fine, I think. Shock combat morale. Yeah. Okay. And now, again, on the 5 table at minus 1, I get a 4. I caused a retreat on these guys. These guys have a problem. They've just died. Well, no. They're stuck. I don't know if they died. And the other one, no effect. Okay, now we look at the effects of retreat if there is no capability for retreat. And yeah, you can tell I'm really enjoying this. And it's not the game's fault. It's more me than anything else, I think. Okay. There's nowhere to retreat from up there. Unit may no retreat. A DRM is applied if the unit checking morale is required to retreat, but is in an area, okay, from which it could not retreat at all. So yeah, I'm just stuck there. Eventually, I'm gonna fail, but we just keep rolling dice until I do. So now I'm subjected to a morale check. My morale check is I'm suppressed. I get a +1. I have no retreat route. That's a +1, and it's per area I can't retreat, so it's only +1. So I'm at +2, and I roll high enough that I'm destroyed. And so these guys are upstairs, these guys are downstairs suppressed. This guy is defeated. And that is the end of shock combat. Now we unsuppress, and we have to hunt around for where I have these rotated. It happens to be all of them because, you know, it's the police turn. Okay. And that puts us on fire combat for the non-police player, and and yeah, I pause. I've got a little bit of a conundrum here, and that's before I walk away in too much frustration, although I do have to walk away. It's that zooming in and showing the entire thing is frustrating. And mechanically, the game's hard to manipulate with just one hand and whatnot, right? It would be less unpleasant to be playing this not on camera. But here's the problem. There's no vision to really, no story that comes through outside, for me, of that individual little actions and the mechanical aspects that are going on. And the problem with that is, without some story coming out that I can express, it's very, very hard for me to step away and zoom back with the or unzoom the camera, essentially, and just say, well, you know, this building fell, these buildings fell. Like, you know, the whole story to me is all in these little tiny mechanical actions. There's nothing that grows out of them that I really want to see. On the other hand, this is less pleasant on video. I mean, it's always less pleasant to be just playing the game on video, right? The exciting part about doing these kind of things is expressing the story that comes through the video and showing all the mechanicals mechanical actions of the game is just not fun in any case. It's how I usually end up playing Euros and whatnot, and probably why I end up hating them when I'm videoing them, because the only story I can show is the story that the game itself directly is portraying. There's no emergent story. I could come up with one, but it's hard to remember. All that, because nothing sticks in my head, right? And that's what's problematic in something like this. I don't have a good way of showing it. And all that I end up showing is my frustration in dealing with the systems. Okay, I just realized something. Movement into this building, this would be part of the F building. That would have exposed these pistol punks. I guess I'll just put them in with these other guys. They don't get their bonus fire. I'm trying to make a decision as to how I want to shoot and whatever, and I also kind of wanted to step back. One of the things is, what happens if I drop multiple Molotovs at a time? And by the way, I had to mark this off. Is that a possibility? And again, we resort to the rule book to try to see I don't think they'd combine. I think what would happen is each one would make attacks at a range at a value of 4 against each enemy unit. They wouldn't make an additive attack of 8. It just seems like that's the intention. I'm not sure. Oh, I dropped one of the Molotovs in, suppressed all but one in this pile here. And now I've got 2 units that are on that same level who are going to drop down, and I kind of don't have a way to, we're just getting so many cluttered stacks to try to represent everything that's going on in that space. Now, I think I can also fire diagonally, which means I could dump a Molotov here as well and suppress some of them. One of the questions, of course, is, would I want to, have done some fire combat? Well, they got suppressed enough that I'd like to beat them up and crack some heads and see what happens. But from here, I think I'll let the pistol punks. Oh wow, agitators. No, they don't have their own morale. They have like a -1 to the morale is all. Okay. And what's the +1 for? Shock combat. Okay. Pistol punks are probably the best choice because the value is equivalent across the board. Now, I don't know. I would... Oh wait, I'm on level 1 here? That's not right. Did these guys really come down? That blows. That gets rid of an advantage, but I guess they went downstairs with the intention to throw themselves into more combat. So, yeah, I'll have them together and start doing things there. But the pistol punks were just exposed, so I'm going to actually put them up on that second level so that I can drop fire on this group, and then we'll kind of figure out what we're doing. But it's not easy for my mob units to move. Their movement rate, well, wait, they have movement rates of 4. I thought they had 3s. No, it's the shitty police that have 3s. Okay. I handled the attacks here and drove them out of the building, actually killing 1 cop unit, or destroying 1 cop unit. We got the wounded cops up to like +10, which means like we're losing points overall for the damage we've done to the police. But here, I realized I've kind of screwed up. And that's to say, I forgot about the weak combat capability of units. So I'm just going to keep throwing Molotovs down there. So I'll throw another one down, and probably a third one, although I could just try to pick them off using firepower. So that was somewhat of a waste. Both my Molotovs they couldn't really do anything to these guys because they're already suppressed. So there's a -2 net on the die roll, so they're not going to cause any wounds or anything. So the morale checks aren't going to fail because fire combat morale checks being suppressed isn't a penalty. It is for shock combat. And that makes sense. But I was hoping to suppress this guy, maybe get down there and beat up, crack some heads with the final pistol punk. I didn't get that. Instead, they dropped another Molotov, just hoping to suppress the unit so it can't do anything on the next turn. The one nice thing is the cannon is probably not too happy making a shot into this space. Simply because, yeah, I could get lucky, but I could also destroy the building on the cops, and I probably don't want to take that chance. Over here, we drove the cops out onto the street. None of them, well, one of them surrendered, as I noted. That brings us to the next turn, and we're at the fire and gas check. But before that happened, we had the suppression recovery, and notably, these guys will recover next turn. These guys will. They didn't recover during this because, again, there's that asymmetry there. And we'll try to remember, but, it's really hard to track the number of pieces. The stacking and whatnot with the modifiers, it's getting in the way. It's a clumsier... shit. I'm not allowed to have this many units in a space. I forgot about that. There is a stacking limitation. Fuck me. God. I forget all kind of things. So it's 3 groups, which means I'm overstacked here by a couple. And that's really about it. Now I am overstacked up here too. Shit. Well, he could have been here second level and done what he did. So we'll do that. I'll try to fix that stacking during the police turn. But yeah, they shouldn't be that crowded, which of course makes this a more interesting target. Maybe I'll remember, maybe I won't. I don't know. So not in the mood. Pushed through a police turn where they were pretty much in retreat. They fired like 1 shot only, but they get to recover. The artillery's under here. A bunch of their units, and we're correctly stacked now. This gives them a little bit of a respite to the mobs. Someone brought up liberal versus non-liberal. There's nothing about the mobs that's necessarily liberal. In this particular case, I think it's kind of hard to judge which side would be the more liberal side. Probably the mob, and in more cases than not, you might say that's the case. But there are certainly incidences where an illiberal side is the mob, and the police are actually on the more liberal side of things. So, and it depends on what your terminology of liberal versus conservative is. If you're looking, yeah, it's a complicated line to draw. It would be, so one usually thinks that the police state is the less liberal side, but that kind of doesn't follow the left versus right trying to put communism as the more liberal. So you would have like anti-communist forces that, are they really the more liberal? I don't know. I mean, maybe they're anti-police state. This was a big turn for the mob here. They managed to kill the gun crew and one of the police unit. Well, not killed. They caused 2 wounds to the gun crew and forced it to abandon the gun, and took out one of the police units with just firepower, really. don't even think they got a wound on them. I'm trying to think how they could have managed that. I'm not sure. I don't know. But anyway, they're getting a heavier hit there. That brings us back around to the, hey, find suppressed guys and turn them. Now, the chances of units becoming suppressed during the police player turn is very low. But you can see the police are in trouble now. With the cannon knocked out, I think in serious trouble. Police have, they stormed up here and defeated the defenders, getting a wound on them. They got an X result, which is about as good as you can get. Retreat 2 areas, receive a wound and do a morale check. Well, yeah, but they didn't fail any morale checks, but I may have forgotten to add the one for retreating. Nope, there's no retreat penalty in the shock combat, only if they have no retreat route, and they did have one. So that puts us over again to the mob, which appears to be entirely healthy. No, one unit is suppressed, with some capability to fire. Now, the mob in general wants to fire because my shock combat values are shitty. I don't have one of the crowd units that has real shock capability. I just have, you know, guys with guns who don't really want to stand up and fight against the police in hand-to-hand. The mob takes out another policeman, but they didn't really suppress many. They got one over here who's going to be able to recover. They killed one of the weaker line units. That moves the turn marker forward another turn. It goes until the mob's wiped out. I assume it would also go until the police are wiped out. Police wounded number. I was tracking them at, you know, from 1 to 10 with the plus 10. Well, now they're up to 20. And, you know, it could go up to 39. And then I guess I got to keep checking with numbers. I also have a piece that has not been sprung. It happens to be in this building. I don't know, there might have been a line of sight. Yeah, it looks like there would have been a line of sight if I popped up there. And it's a sniper, so I could have done that and gotten the advantage out of it. I chose not to, which was probably foolish. Police engaged in fire only, and that's not necessarily the best thing to do. They're better at cracking heads than they are at shooting people. Their firepower is on par with the mob, so that may have been a mistake. And then withdrew into more defensive positions, including the squat here. They got a couple of wounds, but they didn't do much. They suppressed one unit, and now we got some more Molotovs coming in because I'm within range 1, which is, of course, the problem is that bad stuff can happen to to the police. And I think I've been forgetting to check for fire with the Molotovs. And forgetting a group fire can be as many Molotovs as I like, so I can just keep chucking them. And I've been doing one per group, so I've weakened their effectiveness again. It's easy to make mistakes in something like this. Some of what it reminds me of is kind of the old Car Wars, where there was a lot to learn and understand. The problem, of course, being that I was kind of excited about Car Wars. And this, it's too much like a tactical gunfight type scenario, you know? It just, again, personal tastes, you know? Ran into, I got a fire finally started here on the first floor of that building. Now, my question was, hey, does the Molotov hit both floors of the building, and what happens to the people who are on the second floor? Because they won't have a retreat route without going through the fire that's on the first floor. And then I ran into something. Molotovs may be thrown into or out of buildings, but not inside a building. Now, I don't think I've ever thrown one inside a building if a building is the building drawn on the map, but if it's a letter area, I have. I just did. I threw from here across to there. I guess I'll allow that, but yeah, that's something I, remember reading, but I didn't hit. Now, under the Molotov, it doesn't say anything about the fire there. I gotta find whether under buildings or fire rules, both of which exist somewhere in here, it's gonna have an effect. So, I mean, the real question is the level another space or not, as it were? I normally treat it as a different location, and that's not clear there. Fires, I'm pretty sure are handled somewhere, but it may just be here. So yeah, is this an area? Is it not? I don't know. I'm gonna say it is. It's nasty, and that they'll run out and leave, I guess. I really don't know, even though they were on the second level. And of course that opens up new opportunities for fire. And I have to try to remember the guys who have thrown Molotovs aren't going to be allowed to fire and crap like that. Time I popped the sniper out to ding someone down over here, suppressed him. We got one kill with all the firing and whatnot of a mob unit. Now I gotta see if anybody's got a rotated suppression counter in these stacks. Probably the biggest pain point in this game is searching through the stacks, because the spaces just aren't big enough to spread the units out the way you'd like. Almost feels like an area game would work just as well. Almost, not quite. I'm learning a little bit more. I'm starting to change my tactics in the game. I use some fire from over here that can't get up to this level. Spread the fire out so I cause less wounds, right? Because those count against me, although they might destroy units. And now I'm going to march up here to the second level with these guys. No one else can make it to that second level, and I got to figure out where everyone else is moving. I'm going to attack. There's almost no strength there. There's like 1 or 2 points, which, yeah, there's 2, which means very, very little. That's the minimum level, and maybe I can cause some issues. Several die rolls with police on the bottom and on the top floor facing the mob forces. The weakness of being on the top floor is exposed. It means that you can be cut off from retreat. And that means this one cop unit just keeps beating on them until what? I'm not sure what happens. Eventually they might both end up at 0 table, fighting it out at that, at which point the cops no longer have their real advantage, because it's only the person with the least strength who retreats, and they'd both be at 0 at that point. But right now the cops have the advantage. They'll keep rolling on the 5 or 6 table, and the other thing is the police can retreat. So they're not going to have penalties to their morale check no matter what. But one way or another, only one person's going to be here, and I think that's going to end up with that entire group, set of groups, being thrown into the discard pile. It's a clunky system because there were a lot of die rolls. I had to roll like 4 rounds of combat to get to this point. Now the bad thing has happened. The police got a morale check hit, and now it's 2 suppressed stacks fighting each other. Let me just make sure the retreat rules don't allow you to retreat if you're at 0, at equivalent. That must retreat may retreat 1 area to the street level of the same area or to an adjacent building at the second level. The cops could actually retreat here, but these guys can't. They're not adjacent. Oh, wait. Yes, they are. They're second level. Oh, they weren't. If this is indeed the same building, they're kind of leaping out the window to another building. I just don't buy that. I don't know. Now here they say a crowd backed up against a building. Well, crowds can't enter buildings. That's why we're not a crowd. Let's see. Shock combat retreat. It's me. There are no enemy units in both crowds. No. I'm trying to find. Oh, you can voluntarily retreat, but I don't know that I'd want to do that. All units from one side total their shock. The other player, all units. If all units, it's just going to be this obnoxious die rolling back and forth, even worse than before, because there's almost no chance of any effect. Because there's a -2 for being in the building to the shock combat roll. +1 for suppressing something, so it's going to be a -1 net. So the best I kind of get is a morale check. Well, I guess it's in the cops' interest to keep fighting. They are more likely to break, but they're like fighting by hiding behind stuff and saying, "You're an idiot." Mob ended up lucky. They ended up, not mob. Yeah, I guess mob. Whatever. They ended up scaring the police enough with their insults and taunts that the police just disintegrated. And I guess just ran away completely or something. I don't know what happens to them, in this case. That means the police get to recover, and they get to recover their units that, well, everything except the guys who broke, because everything else was suppressed last turn. And now we're back on these guys, and God, I don't know what I'm doing. Mob performs a little bit more fire. The only thing they get out of it is like suppression here and there. I don't know where. We got these guys suppressed down here. We piled in here. It's not clear to me. So little dashes don't go through the building. So are those separate spaces within the building, or is the building just one space? I don't know. I think they're separate spaces because it talks about it doesn't matter where you are in the building with hidden units. You get to place yourself where you want to be or something along those lines. That pushes us into another turn. We check the fire, which keeps burning. We mark things so that they can unsuppress when they get a chance. And oh geez, I don't know, these may have unsuppressed already. That's what it looks like. And we continue on. Now, in addition to whatever I don't like about little tactical games, the cumbersome nature of this system is really painful. And I guess what it reminds me the most of is games where there's like a saving throw, because, oh look, I got a hit. Oh look, it didn't matter. Potentially that could give more story, but I hate it even in things like the naval battles in La Grande Guerre or whatever. It's just a means of dragging it out further and further and further. It's kind of what I have against RuneQuest, with its attack defense die rolls. Now compare that to D&D, where oh look, I hit, I do damage, or a better system, and Rollmaster and whatnot, which is much faster than any of them actually, but a better system that tells the same kind of story as the RuneQuest, attack versus parry, is both players roll, the one who hits gets the higher roll. Both might miss, but you don't really worry about, you don't have these multiple rolls. Here you've got this attack, then you've got the morale check. Okay, but the attack doesn't really do anything. The only thing you're trying to do is accumulate a high enough morale check. It makes sense, you know, when you try to think about the subject matter and everything, but in terms of playability of the game, it ends up just dragging it down really painfully. Anyhow, we're on to the police side, and we'll see what I can figure out there. Whether I can try to trap units again here. These guys are on the bottom, but they don't have enough movement points to get up. These guys are in a hellish position, you know, too far away to do much. Yeah, a lot of problems across the board. I don't know what happened. There's not much here. There's some fire, may have suppressed some things. This one becomes rotated, so it'll unsuppress, and we're in a position to take the fight back to these guys, finish them off. Remember, each turn is worth victory points, though, to the mob, so, like, there's a pain point there that I'd like to improve, but it's not going to be easy. The guys on the roof up here, and now it's back to the mob who will be using their snipers to fire here, and got other units that can fire other places, but we're really getting down to a limited number of actions left, which at least, you know, hey, I guess we're coming close to the end, I hope. And thieves stormed into here, took out the one pistol punk on the bottom, mainly because there's lucky morale check. There's no way I can surround it and force it not to have a retreat point, and therefore just beat it to shit. Upper level I can do that. Can't do it on the lower level. These guys may want to come down on their turn, but they can't do it if they do a fire combat. On the other hand, I could drop some Molotovs and maybe make it worth coming down to fight. So, who could drop them? Well, I don't have a lot of fighting capability. All I have is groups, is these groups with one melee strength, so it doesn't leave me with a lot of options. This guy's kind of just stuck up there, nothing in sight. I don't know if this was stupid or not. I didn't drop the Molotov, I dropped fire from him, from the shotgun punks, which suppressed the remaining unit. Then these guys came down. Well, maybe that was a mistake, because that puts us both on the 2 level. Now, for fighting, I have a +1 for suppressed, but -1 for units in building. Okay, so I'm looking at, I need to roll a 5 or a 6 to get any result, including a morale check, which does nothing, basically. So I need a 6 to get a retreat result, which might hit anything, but the morale check does nothing. These other guys are going at, on the 0, 1, 2, at -2. Now again, maybe I made a mistake here, but they can only get 4 hit on a 6, which will be a morale check, which might suppress some of these and thus reduce us. But eventually it could get to that 0 versus 0 level. Now, the morale check does have a chance of doing something with the +1, but this is just gonna fucking be another series of die rolls of crappy stuff facing each other off. And I'm just left with the feeling that it just ain't worth it. After we took out another cop doing you know, failed saving throws where a 6 hits, but the morale of the cops actually doesn't even matter. Like, good cops, really sturdy units, once they're suppressed, they're just as broken as anything else. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you know, this is okay. Let's take a look at what I keep doing each of these rounds. This is a 2 at +1 for suppressed, -2 for building, so I'm at -1. I get a 4, that's going to be a morale check. On the other side of this, it's 0 at -2. I need a 6 to get any effect at all. I don't. So now I've got morale checks on these, and they're both at +1. So if either one rolls a 6, I get a hit. Neither one does. They don't have any opportunity to withdraw. Now, I could withdraw, and maybe I want to, because I've got other stuff. So yeah, I'm going to withdraw and let them get a shot at me without answering it. And now we're out of here, but still suppressed. And that ends the turn. I forgot that I have that option. And that puts me on the unsuppression marker, and maybe there's people who are suppressed here, yeah, but they weren't marked yet. So now they are. And that's it. And check the fire. This is just so fucking frustrating. The fire goes out for whatever little effect it had. Do the same bum rush thing that we did before, but since we can only have 3 groups in any area, we'll fire with these. They will fire at a fire combat of 3. No height advantage. No suppression. But firing through a building, so I'm at -2, which means I can't do anything. But because it's fire combat, it automatically causes a morale check, which is what I want, and that doesn't do me any good. Now, these guys will charge into here, where they'll recover. These guys will march into here. So now I've got 13 to 2. This is pretty good, but these guys can retreat without a problem. 13, I'm at -2. Okay, that's a 0. That has no effect whatsoever. To 2, you know, I don't want to fight, so I'll run. And this is what's just going to happen. Bop, 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 back and forth, back and forth. I don't have the spirit to keep going. I really don't. Eventually, it's going to get trimmed down. What would the victory points be if this was a wipeout right now? If, like, just the mob just dispersed? Just to see what we're looking at, well, it's complicated, right? Because we have to do standard victory points each first. So, police, let's count these. Because I just don't want to do this. So the mob gets -26 for wounding cops, and -3 for killing cops. -6 for the police for wounding people. -6 for killing people. No crowd units were eliminated. Punks, agitators, and snipers, though, which are worth more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Were killed, so that's +21 for the police. Police units eliminated would be 5 each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 35 for the mob. And now we go to what's added for this scenario, because it's not limited to this. So the police, 3 points for each mob unit eliminated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Another 21 for the police. Like I said, just double the score. For the mob, it's 5 for each police unit, and 1 for each victory point, and 2 for each fire. Well, the fire got put out. So this is again the 35 plus 9 turns. Let's just see what we're looking at. 70, 79, 76, 70, 50 for the mob here, and 42 minus 12 is about 30. I don't think it's going to go that much better for the police, so I think the mob is going to get a victory here. How much of a victory would it be? I don't know. You know, I can't keep piddling away with this cumbersome system. It's just too much. So let's take a look at what the victory would be in terms of, if I can find the rules for that. Level of victory, how many more victory points? If one player has a 0 or less, assume that they have 1. If both players have negative, If one player has more but less than twice as many, it's marginal. Well, currently it would be marginal. It probably would stay that way. And I'm just wrapping this up. I do not have the appetite to keep going with this game. I'll be back with a review for it.